Fear Not, Episode 123. Hi, I'm Billy Atwell, and I believe that consistently facing your fears is the only way to realize your truest self and to make those confident choices that will help you to obtain your deepest held hopes and dreams. I have faith that this podcast series will show you that you are not alone, that it will strengthen you and give you courage to face your fears, and that it will help you to permanently cross over into a life of living beyond your fears. Join me on this journey as we listen and learn from others as they share their experiences in facing and overcoming their own fears. Hello, everybody. Today, you and I are going to be joined by James Jhorton. Welcome, James. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well today. Thank you. Are you ready to fear not?
I am.
James's lifelong dream was to be a writer. He wrote and told stories as a child, but then life became real. He worked in retail for most of his life, including managing fast food restaurants, before opening his own retail business that he built into a very successful endeavor. None of that work was satisfying to him, though. It was work. In June 2014, he wrote a short storybook about his relationship with his wife called Be Happy, 12 Steps to a Happy Relationship. He followed this with his first published fiction story, and he hasn't looked back since. James, can you take a few moments to fill in the gaps and maybe give us an additional brief glimpse of your personal life?
Yeah, I'm a father. I have 5 beautiful daughters and a stepson who doesn't live with us. He lives with his dad. So it's not that I don't have a lot of responsibilities. I have kids that I have to take care of and grow. And they're pretty much the heart of my life. Beyond that, my wife and I are both very active in our church. We do a lot of charity work, things that we find important to us, to give back to the world, because both of us have this idea that the more you give out to the world, the more you get back. You got to give good things and get good things back. But yeah, so it's been a long and storied career to get to where I'm at, because my family was in retail. That's how I got into it. We had the dime store in the small town for 65 years before it went under, and that's kind of all I ever knew as far as, because that was the career I was told I was supposed to have when I was growing up. You'll work in the dime store, and that's what you'll do, and you'll die here in the dime store. That's what we do. That's our family business. So it's been changing away from that whenever that all changed, because Walmart and big box retail and everything came in, was a big shift for the family and a big change. And it took a while before I decided I was basically brave enough to just take this leap of faith and go do what I really wanted to do.
Would you also share with us today one of the biggest fears you've had to face?
Flat out failure. It's really, really scary when you're jumping from a known factor. When I quit managing fast food restaurants, it was when it probably was one of the turning points, because I was making great money, really good money, but I was also working over 80 hours every week. So it was really this scary moment when I sat down with my dad and had a long talk with him. I'm like, I don't know which way to go, because I'd gotten into this, and I had 3 restaurants that I was responsible for. One, I did the day-to-day management of. 2, I did what they called supervise. I had to drive over and check them out and all this stuff. But it was really, so like I said, I'm making really good money, but I don't have any time to enjoy it. I didn't have time. At that time, I had only my first daughter, and she was growing up, and I was missing every school event. I wasn't able to go to anything because I had to work all the time. And so there's this whole contradictory, because we have this mindset, at least, growing up in America here, that you have to, have a good job, you work hard, you make money, and that's all that matters. So it was this whole switch. Do I give up this really great paying job and go take a gamble on, I don't know what? I mean, I didn't really have a plan or an idea at that point of what I was going to do or how I was going to even make a living. I just knew I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. But to overcome that, like I said, I had a really long talk with my dad, and he said, there's really no point in life if you're not happy. And so I went and I thought about that for 2 or 3 weeks, and I thought, I'm miserable, actually. I was not healthy. I was just not in a happy position in my life at all. So I finally came to the decision. I went in and I told my partners, I said, I'm giving you 30 days to buy me out. I'm out of here. And that was the first big leap in my life because I left, like I said, a kind of ridiculously well-paying job at the time uh, to go and have nothing lined up. I went and I opened a small retail shop after that I had no idea if it was going to work or not.
So, how do you approach fear when it comes? What do you do to face it and overcome it?
The biggest thing I think I find helps with fear is work harder. Uh, it's kind of a little thing I've learned through the years. If I'm so busy and I'm so focused on my goal of what I'm trying to create and what I'm doing, and I did this when I started my retail businesses, and I've done this as an author, um, I'm too busy to be afraid. And because it creeps in, and you're like, oh, am I going to fail? Am I going to make it? And, or am I going to be able to buy groceries this week for the kids? Uh, every time that starts setting in, I get to work because it's all on me. It's all my production. So if you want to create the life you want, you have to work really hard and you have to be willing to do that. You're not, I don't have the safety net of a weekly paycheck coming in now. I don't have, a company I'm working for, somebody else signing my paycheck. I have to go and earn that check and take it, from the world by producing a product that people want. Um, so the biggest thing I think on facing fear honestly comes down to me for work harder. If you've got time to be afraid, you're not working hard enough and you're not focused enough on your game.
James, you've must have come across some, if not interesting material, very beneficial material to you to help you sort of come to that point to face and how you face your fears. Would you mind sharing some of those with us today?
Yeah, probably my biggest influence and the biggest thing that's shaped my viewpoint of the world right now is a book, which I kind of got into on a sideline. It's called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone is actually a salesman. That's where he started out at, and he has all this sales training and everything else. And I'm sure all that's amazing, but I don't do direct sales, so none of that really applied to me. But I'd read a couple of his books, and I thought these are interesting, And then I read The 10X Rule, and that was not a book just about sales. That was a book about how to create the life you want. Um, and this guy's just got so much energy, and that's when I really started getting the idea of being so deeply involved in what I'm trying to create. I didn't have time to be afraid anymore because he talks about you have to think bigger and you have to be willing to work harder to get what you want. And that's kind of the whole theme of the book. The whole idea is that you think 10 times bigger than what you think you can get, but you also know you have to work 10 times harder than what you think you're going to have to work to get it. Um, so that was really a huge influence when I read that one on me. And I read that several years ago, and I've actually reread that book probably 20 times now because it's just a mind blowing. For me, it was a mind blowing experience.
Are you ready for the speed run?
Sure.
What person, whether they be fiction or real, has made the most impact on your life?
That would have to be my dad. Dad and I had a struggling relationship because I'm older, so my dad was in the Navy during Vietnam. So for the first 4 years of my life, Dad wasn't there, and then he comes back, and there's this stranger. So we kind of had this weird relationship because we didn't form early bonds. And then my dad always worked hard. That's the other place I really got that idea. Because he worked hard and worked so much, he was never home. He was always at our family dime store working. And so we just never really got close until I was older. But when I got older, what I found out is that my dad really never wanted to be a retailer either. My dad was actually a very talented artist in his own right, and he would write stories and wrote his own books and everything, but he never did anything with them, as well as other creative endeavors. And when I finally made the leap to being an author in 2014, my dad was one of the best moments I can remember in my life is when he told me how proud he was of me, and because he had bought my book without my knowing it and read it and told me how amazing it was, and then he says, I just can't wait for that next one. So, from that point on, every time I'd get a book published, I'd get a copy to Dad.
If you could instantly change one thing in the world, what would you change?
I'd get rid of drugs, hands down. Not, I mean, just we're such a drug-focused society now, and I think it's killing us. And I mean, I don't, not even just street drugs. There are so many, there's a pill for everything now, and you start listening to the side effects on these pills, and it's like, it's ridiculous. I think we've gone away from actual care, and we're too busy treating symptoms. We're not looking at causes. So yeah, if we could get a handle on drugs, both legal and illegal, and just eliminate them from society, because the illegal drugs are such a blight on our society as a whole. That if we could get rid of that, I think we'd make huge strides towards improving humanity overall.
What's your biggest weakness?
Procrastination. As hard as I'm willing to work, I'm also very lazy at times. And people who know me from outside don't ever say that, oh, you work so hard. I'm like, no, I'm really a pretty lazy guy. I work so hard so I can try and have time off that I do what I want to do. So, I tend to procrastinate. Like if I have a deadline on a book that I've got to get it published by or I've got to get it written by, I usually wait till the last minute, and then I have to really jam it out at the end.
What's your biggest strength?
I have an amazing ability that I didn't realize I had until a friend of mine was reading one of my books, and that is to translate and create scenes in my stories that really convey real people. It makes the people real to them, to my readers. And that is my greatest strength and my greatest joy, that I can actually bring a piece of humanity through these characters that just live in my head.
If you could only have one book to read, what's that book going to be?
Oh, that's a tough question. I would probably have to go with the 10X rule, because that's the one I keep going back to and I reread. And anytime I'm feeling down on my life or I feel like I can't make it work, I go back and I read that, and it changes my viewpoint again for me.
Do you have a favorite sound?
It's music. I love, it would be hard to pick a genre, but probably I have a deep love affair with musicals. Uh, that is probably a little odd. Most people don't get it, but I really love musicals.
And James, if someone would like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can get to me through my author page on Amazon, or at my email, which is jdhortonauthor@gmail.com.
And what parting advice would you like to leave with us today?
My best advice to everybody is work hard and don't be afraid to dream big. I get a lot of people always tell me how much they admire the fact that I'm living my dream and do what I want to do. And it's not that I'm special or that I have some unique talent that everybody else on this planet doesn't have. It's honestly the fact that I was willing to take the risks, that I was willing to put myself out there. And also you have to be willing to fail. I can't deny I've failed many times in this life. I mean, I've been down in the dirt and had to pull myself up. But the thing is, failure's not that bad. That's the worst that's going to happen to you. They're not going to take your birthday away. They're not going to kill you. You failed. Okay, try again.
Excellent advice, and thank you so much for that. And James, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I know you're fighting a cold, so I really appreciate you sticking in there and sharing your story and just being an inspiration to us.
I really appreciate the chance. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, you cannot achieve everything, but you do have the God-given ability to achieve anything. So stay focused, out of fear, and keep on keeping on. Until next time, be well and peaceful. For more information on today's episode and guest, or for resources that will assist you in overcoming your fears, visit livingbeyondyourfears.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, where 3 times a week we move to a life beyond our fears.